All right, geometry class, this is for the optional practice, week 2, lesson 2, and we're going to go ahead and find the volume of rectangular prisms or cubes. The really easy way, like this is the easiest of all of them because all that you have to do is really take the area of the base, which is 9 times 17, and multiply it by the height, which is 24. So the volume is really 9 times 17, and then we're going to multiply by the height, which is 24 centimeters. And that entire volume, I don't know why my pen is freaking out, is going to end up being 3,672 centimeters cubed. Okay, now for the next one, same thing. We're going to find the area of the base, or volume equals length times width times height, or volume equals area of the base times height. Whichever formula you would like to use, it's the same thing. The volume equals 10 times 14 times 4.5 inches, and multiplying all of that out is going to end up giving us 630 inches cubed. All right, for number 3, same concept. Volume equals the area of the base. Now notice this rectangular prism is kind of on its side, so I'm going to identify this as the base. Rectangular base, so I'm going to end up having 12 times 39 times 8, which would all just end up multiplying out to 3,744 feet cubed. Now, if you have your numbers in a different order, that's okay, because remember the commutative property of multiplication, we can move them around, and if I type 8 times 39 times 12, it's still going to give me the same solution, 3,744 feet cubed. All right, so that's for rectangular prisms and cubes or cubes. Let's go ahead and take a look at other prisms. This first one for number 4 is a triangular prism because our base is a triangle. Now, whenever we're finding the area of the base, okay, we do need volume equals area of the base times the height. Here's our formula right over here. And our base on this one is a triangle, so it's going to end up being 1/2 base times height, and that's going to really just specify the triangle itself. And over here, the height is the distance between the figure, the two planes, and that's going to end up giving us 5. So the height is 5. I'm going to write that down next to. Volume equals 1/2. Now, our base in this case is going to end up being 12. Notice how 12 is up here and 12 is down here as well because they are congruent to each other. So we're going to end up having 12 times the height of the triangle. Do not get swayed by this 9 or this 10 because we just need the height of the triangle, which is perpendicular to the base, which is 12. So that's going to be 7.3. And we're going to multiply it by the height of the figure, so it's the distance between the two triangles. Multiply all of that out, and you should end up with the volume equals 219 feet cubed. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at number 5. With any of these problems, you can always pause the video and work it out, and then check with the solution that I have. And if you have any questions or issues with it, then watch the video. And then I'm always available for Zoom or email me. I can hopefully answer through that. It's easier on Zoom though because I can show you in real time and you can ask me in the middle of the problem. Okay, so looking at number 5, we have another triangular prism. This time the base is not on the bottom, and that's okay. So we're going to take the area of the triangle, so the volume equals capital B times height, which the capital B is just going to give us the area of the triangle, 1/2 the base times height, which is 11 times 5.4, because we're looking at this side that's perpendicular to the base of the triangle, and multiplied by the distance between the two shapes, or the distance between the two triangles, which is 16. Okay, multiply all of that out, we would end up with our volume equals 475.2 millimeters cubed. Cylinders. So when we're looking at a cylinder that kind of looks like a tuna can, okay, we're going to start with finding the volume of the cylinder And the volume formula, we're going to start off with pi r squared, that's the area of the base, times the height. The overall height, I noticed, is going to end up being 15, and our radius is 18. Whoops. Okay. So I'm simply substituting those dimensions in, so we're going to end up with volume equals pi times 15 squared times our height, which is 18. Okay, and then our overall volume, it depends on whether or not you write it down with pi. If you had the exact answer, which would be 4,860 pi, or if you had pi approximated to 3.14, then your solution would be 15,260.40, and we're looking at inches cubed. Now, if you use the pi button, that would equal 15, or it would be approximate again, because remember, your solution would be an irrational number that you're going to have to simplify. So in this case, it would be simplified to 15,268.14. Okay, and that's inches cubed. So you could have one of those three solutions. I would prefer one of these two rather than the in terms of pi, but you'll see that also sometimes. Okay, so for number 10, we're going to go ahead and start by identifying what we need. Our formula, because it is a cylinder, is just going to end up being volume equals pi r squared times our overall height. And we need two things. We need the height, which is 11. Whoops, not 11. We need our height, which is the distance between the two bases, which are circular, which is going to end up giving us 21 meters. And our diameter is 11, but we need the radius. So the radius is actually going to just end up being 5.5, because we're going to take half of the diameter here. Now we're going to go ahead and substitute substitute our radius and our height back into the formula. So that would just end up being volume equals pi r squared, which is going to end up being 5.5 squared, times our overall height, which is 21. Okay, now if we would like our exact terms, that's going to end up being 635.25 pi. If we were finding it with pi approximated to 3.14, that would end up being 1,994.69 meters cubed, or if we use that pi button, it would be 1,995.7 meters cubed. So that's how you would find the volume of cylinders. Let's go ahead and take a look at pyramids. Now the volume of a pyramid, same formula that we have to use is the area of the base times the height. The only difference is we're only taking 1/3 of the volume of an actual rectangular prism, if this was enclosed in a rectangular prism. So the volume formula equals 1/3 area of the base times the height. Now the area of the base in this figure is down here. This is a rectangular prism, so we're going to end up with 10 times 11 for the area of the base. Our height is the perpendicular height from the base, which is 16. And we're going to multiply that by 1/3. Now whenever I see 1/3, it's the same thing as taking and dividing by 3, because it's really 1/3 of that value. So I'm just going to write it as one large fraction. After you multiply all of that out, it's going to end up being 586.67 inches cubed. So that's going to give you the volume of that pyramid. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this one. This one kind of looks weird, but it's similar to number 1 in the fact that we do have a rectangular base. So we're going to take this rectangular base and we're going to find the volume with the same formula, 1/3 the area of the base, times the height. So the area of the base in this case is just going to end up being 21 times 9, and then our height is 5. So 21 times 9 times 5, all divided by 3. And that's going to give us our overall volume, which is 300 and, whoa, that was a weird 3. Let's try that again. 315 yards cubed. And that's going to be our overall volume for that pyramid. Let's take a look at cones. Now this is very important in an ice cream shop if you think about it, because then you can find the volume of how much ice cream is going to go into the cone, which is surprisingly not as much as you think it would be. All right, so for number 7, we're going to take a look at the volume formula for a cone, which is just 1/3 that of a cylinder. So we're going to end up with the cylinder formula and then divide by 3. So the volume is 1/3 times pi r squared times the height. We do need to identify what the radius is and what the height is of this cone. The radius is from the center out. That's going to give us 9 yards. And then our height is 17 yards because it's perpendicular to our base. Now our volume is 1/3. Volume equals 1/3, but in this case we're going to have pi. So it's going to be pi times the radius, which is 9 squared, times our height, which is 17, all divided by 3. Okay, and I'm going to calculate that 2 different ways. One, I'm going to use when pi is approximately 3.14 for all you non-pi buttons out there. That would end up being 1,441.26 yards cubed. Or you're going to end up with, if you do have a pi button on your calculator, that's going to end up being 1,441.99 yards cubed. Okay, so you could have both of those, and they're slightly different, but not by much. This one is more accurate though, because on your calculator it goes farther out with the decimals. Let's take a look at our last problem. Our last problem for today is number 8, and our volume formula, we are working with a cone. Volume formula is 1/3 pi r squared times our height. We need to first identify what our radius is and what our height is. I notice that the height is 8 inches because that's perpendicular to my base. Now the next one is I need to find the radius, but in this case they gave us that the diameter is 5, so we're going to take half of that, and half of the radius is, or half of the diameter is just going to give us our radius, which is 2.5 inches. We're going to go ahead and substitute that in for the volume. 1/3, I don't like how that's, we're going to end up with pi times our radius, which is 2.5, squared times our height, which is 8, all divided by 3. So again, I'm going to go ahead and write this out 2 different ways. Pi is approximated to 3.14, and then for those of you guys with pi buttons on your calculators, you're going to end up with 2 solutions. If you approximate, you're going to end up with 52.33 inches cubed, and if you use that pi button, that's going to end up being 52.36 inches, inches cubed. Alright, that concludes our optional practice. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Goodbye.